Now, another one of my heroes is Alan Turing, another brilliant Brit. And I want to draw attention to his own strange version of reasoning and show you the similarities. Now, here's a picture of computers before Turing. Most of them are wearing dresses. They're people. Computer, that was a job description. That was a job you had. What do you do for a living? I'm a computer. They were hired by the thousands, actually, before Turing, to do what? Well, to do computational work. In those days, computers had to understand arithmetic. In fact, they were typically math majors. They had to appreciate the reasons why they were doing what they were doing. And Turing recognized that this was not strictly necessary. This was his great inversion. Let's look at the two together. Here's Darwin's. In order to make a perfect and beautiful machine, it is not requisite to know how to make it. Here's Turing's. In order to be a perfect and beautiful computing machine, it is not requisite to know what arithmetic is. Two very similar, in fact, I think they're the same inversion at a very deep level. And what they have in common is that both of them draw our attention to something that we would have thought, maybe would have thought was impossible, and that is competence without comprehension. This is my bumper sticker now for this idea. Competence without comprehension. In the case of Darwin, he's saying the process of natural selection has and needs no comprehension, and it is competent to produce all of this fantastic living stuff. Turing is saying you can have the competence to do not just arithmetic, but anything that arithmetic enables, and you don't have to understand it at all. The implication of this is that understanding or comprehension, mind, consciousness, intention, is not the cause, it's an effect, and a fairly recent effect at that. That's a strange inversion. And it is something that, if you understand it, you understand, I think, both Darwin and Turing together much better. A little digression to remind you of an amusing bit of history. Back in the 18th century, a very clever man named von Kempelen made his Turk, his chess-playing Turk. This was an automaton that played chess, and von Kempelen would exhibit it. First exhibited, I think, to Maria Theresa in her castle. He'd open up the cupboard doors and show you all the machinery inside. He'd turn the big crank, and then this wooden mannequin would play chess, and it played winning chess. It beat the best chess players in the court. It beat some of the best chess players in Europe. And so he exhibited this. This was you paid to get in to see it. It was quite a show, and people were fascinated with it. When von Kempelen died, it was sold to another German named Melzel, who toured it in Europe and also brought it to the United States, where it was unmasked by none other than Edgar Allan Poe, who was a young reporter, an investigative reporter, and a good skeptic, and he was just sure that you couldn't make a machine that played winning chess. And he eventually, through careful detective work, managed to figure out what was going on, and sure enough, there's a little man inside. There was a human chess player, didn't have to be too small, and what Melzel did was that he hired and conspired with a very good chess player, whom he brought to the United States, separate passage on another ship, or at least they did not talk to each other on the ship, and they traveled in separate trains and arrived at the theater separately and all the rest, and then he would sneak in. Interesting how Poe caught it, by the way. The clue, the giveaway clue was that whenever Melzel exhibited the Turk, there was always a candelabra with lit candles on the table, rather like Liberace playing the piano. And he wondered why that candelabra was there, and he finally figured out what it was. This was all pre-electricity, of course. Inside the box, the chess player needed a candle to see what he was doing. And the smell of candle smoke would have been a giveaway if it hadn't been for that candelabra on the top. So nice, clever move. Well, now, Poe thought it was flat impossible for a mindless machine to play chess. That's what motivated and fueled his investigation. Well, he was wrong. It isn't. As we know to this day, because Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov for the world champion in chess just a few years ago. A moral that we might draw from this is that there may be a little man inside Deep Blue, but if so, he may well be sound asleep because he doesn't have any work to do. The machine can do all that work. Now, many people think that it's impossible for a mindless process to produce evolution, too. And it isn't. That's what Darwin shows. And we might even draw the conclusion that if there's an intelligent God hidden in the evolution process, he might just as well be asleep since there's no work for him. Yes, that's the import, is that the process of natural selection, this mechanical algorithmic process of natural selection, will do all the work. That's what he's saying. Now, here's a question. Were there colors on this planet before there was color vision? To make it sort of vivid, let's imagine a cliff. This is the Vermilion Cliff out west in the United States. There's some stripes there in red. And were those stripes visible 3 million, 2 billion years ago? What do you mean, were they visible? There was nothing with eyes then. Well, we can answer the question by saying, well, but if there were things with eyes, the stripes would have been visible if the eyes had color vision. But what if they didn't? Are those boundaries visible? Well, if there's colorblind people in the audience, then to you, the boundaries aren't visible. If you all have color vision, then you can see the boundaries. The very question of whether those boundaries is visible can only be answered when we say what kind of an eye we're talking about. That doesn't mean that color is a subjective property. It's just as objective as you could make it. It's just that it's a property that we can't really define independently of some particular class of property detectors or seers. And I want to suggest that the same thing is true about this question. Were there reasons before there were reasoners? The answer I'm going to give is yes, in the same way that there were colors before there was color vision. Now, this is an amazing juxtaposition. On the left, we see a termite castle. On the right, we see Antonio Gaudi's famous La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. They are stunningly similar. They are artifacts made by animals. And yet, I want to claim, although they are superficially very similar, the processes by which they were designed and built are hugely different. Stunningly different. And understanding that difference is the key to this talk. Now here's two other sand castles. The one on the right is the work of the same species as the Sagrada Familia, and we know quite a lot about it. The one on the left is remarkable because it is the work